I used to think the scariest sentence in a marriage was, "We need to talk." Turns out it's actually, "We need structure." Because "we need to talk" at least implies you're still married to a human being. "We need structure" means your spouse has been binge-watching therapist TikTok and now thinks they're a licensed courtroom exhibit. It started the way these things always start. Soft, polite, reasonable. Like a wolf wearing a cardigan. My wife didn't wake up one morning and say, "I'm going to psychologically domesticate you like a golden retriever." No. She woke up and said, "I've been doing a lot of work on myself," which is the relationship equivalent of hearing a click behind you in a dark hallway. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. I mean it. Self-improvement is good, people change, life gets messy. We'd had some normal tension, work stress, money stress, the kind of stress where you argue about a dish that's actually not about the dish. But then, the vocabulary changed. She started speaking in therapy captions, not sentences. Captions. Everything was boundaries, toxicity, emotional safety, maturity, healthy communication, holding space, regulating. I swear, if she had started calling our kitchen a sacred container, I would have moved into the garage. At dinner, she'd say, dead serious, "I don't feel emotionally safe when you sigh like that." I'd blink at her. "Sigh like what?" "Like you're dismissing my experience." My experience was trying to chew chicken without attending a seminar. One time I asked if she'd seen my hoodie. She tilted her head like a therapist evaluating a patient. "Why do you need it right now?" "Because it's cold." That sounds like avoidance. I'm not even joking. Apparently warmth is a coping mechanism. Still, I didn't fight it. I'm not that guy who makes fun of emotions. Emotions are real. People should talk. Relationships need maintenance. So I let her have her new thing. Until the evening she said we needed structure. I came home, threw my keys in the bowl, took off my shoes, and found her at the dining table like she was about to negotiate a hostage situation. Laptop open, a stack of papers, a pen already placed in the center like an offering. She didn't smile. She didn't even do the fake, "Hey babe." She just looked at me with that calm therapist face. The one that says, "I'm not angry, I'm disappointed, and I have bullet points." "Can you sit?" she asked. I nodded, because if you've been married long enough, you learn when to sit. I sat. She folded her hands and took a breath like she'd practiced it in the mirror. "We need structure," she said. I laughed a little, because what else do you do when your spouse sounds like a corporate email? "Structure," I said. "What are we building? A deck?" Her eyes didn't move. She didn't blink. She stayed perfectly calm. "Don't deflect," she said. That was the first time I felt a small chill. Not fear, not panic. Just the sensation of a normal conversation being redirected like a car, gently pushed off the road. "I'm not deflecting," I said. "I'm confused." She slid the paper toward me. The title was printed in bold, like it had been filed somewhere official. Relationship Agreement. I stared at it. Then I stared at her. Then I stared at it again, like it might change if I blinked hard enough. "You wrote a contract?" I asked. "It's not a contract," she said immediately. It was definitely a contract. "It's an agreement," she corrected, as if that was less insane. I flipped the page. I was expecting something like, "Go on 1 date a week, don't fall asleep with your phone in your face. Say, thank you, more often." Normal stuff. But no. It was written like a code of conduct for employees. The first section was called Communication Standards under it. No raised voices, no interrupting, no sarcasm. All concerns must be discussed in a regulated tone. If either partner feels unsafe, the discussion ends immediately. I looked up at her. "No sarcasm?" I said. She nodded once, firm. "It escalates." "Babe," I said, trying not to laugh again. "Sarcasm is my love language." "That's not healthy," she replied, like she was reading a diagnosis. I read more. There were little phrases sprinkled in that sounded oddly polished, like they weren't written by her, like they were copied from somewhere that sells courses. I kept scanning, and I'll be honest, part of me thought it was a joke. I even waited for the punchline, like she'd suddenly grin and say, "Got you. I'm messing with you." But she didn't grin. She watched me like I was a student who didn't understand the syllabus. "You're serious," I said. She leaned forward slightly. "Completely." I stared at the page again. No raised voices. "Fine." No interrupting. "Fine." Regulated tone. Weird, but okay. If her partner feels unsafe, the discussion ends. That one made my eyebrow lift. "Who decides unsafe?" I asked. "I do," she said, then corrected herself quickly. "We do. But we respect each other's nervous systems." I sat back, letting that marinate. Respect each other's nervous systems. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a science documentary. I tapped the paper. "So, what is this? Like, rules?" "They're not rules," she said again, a little sharper. I smiled. "They're rules." She inhaled slowly, exhaled slowly. "Structure helps love survive," she said. "We've been too chaotic." "Chaotic?" I repeated. "We're normal." She shook her head like I didn't get it. "You shut down sometimes." "I get quiet when you're mad," I said. "That's not shutting down. That's survival." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "That tone," she said. "That's exactly what I mean." I laughed. She didn't. And that's when I felt it again. Another small chill. Because she wasn't arguing with me anymore. She was categorizing me. Like my words weren't words. They were symptoms. She pointed to the bottom of the page. There was a signature line. My name printed beside it. Her name printed beside hers. A date line. My wife, the woman I'd eaten pancakes with, was sitting in front of me like she'd prepared a legal exhibit. "Why do I need to sign this?" I asked. Her voice stayed calm, soft even. "Because I need to feel safe," she said. "And because you keep saying you want to fix things." "I do," I said. "But..." She cut in quickly, not loudly, just decisively. "If you love me," she said, "signing this shouldn't scare you." There it was. The hook. That line landed like a knife wrapped in velvet. Because it wasn't a request, it was a test. And tests aren't love, tests are power. I looked at the pen, then I looked at her. She was watching me with that same calm face. No anger, no emotion, just certainty. Like she'd already decided what my hesitation meant. If I refuse, I'm unsafe. If I question it, I'm defensive. If I laugh, I'm immature. I realized, in that moment, there were only two roles available to me. Obedient man who signs villain, who resists growth. And I wasn't planning to play villain in my own house. So I picked up the pen, not because I was scared of her, because I knew exactly what she was doing, and I wanted to see how far she'd take it. I smiled a little as I signed. She finally relaxed, just slightly, like she'd won a point. "Thank you," she said. Then she added, sweet as honey, "This is going to make us stronger." I nodded. "Sure," I said, "stronger." And in my head I thought, yeah, one of us is getting stronger tonight. And it's not the marriage. The weirdest part wasn't that she had a document. The weirdest part was how fast it became normal. Like, once you sign something, your brain goes, well, I guess we live in a world where papers tell me how to talk now. And the human ability to adapt kicks in the same way people adapt to living next to an airport. At first, she treated the agreement like a sacred scroll. For a few days, the rules were almost reasonable. Almost. No yelling, no interrupting, talk in a regulated tone. Fine, whatever. I'm not some caveman who needs to roar to feel alive. I can speak calmly, I can listen, I can do the whole adult thing. The problem was the way she used it. Not like a tool, like a remote control. One evening I came home and she was annoyed about something. I don't even remember what. Something microscopic. A tone, a look, A molecule of disrespect. She started talking, and I responded calmly, "Okay, but I didn't mean it that way." "Rule 2, she said softly. "No interrupting." I paused. "I didn't interrupt you. You stopped." She smiled, patient. "That's your perception." "My perception." "Right. My favorite genre, being corrected about my own experience." I wanted to argue, but I could already see where it was going. If I raised my voice, it was Rule 1. If I used sarcasm, Rule 3. If I objected, I'm resisting accountability. So I nodded like I was in a hostage video. "Got it," I said. She relaxed immediately, like she'd just trained a dog not to jump on guests. Then a week passed, and she came back with an updated version. She didn't call it updated, of course. She called it more aligned. She sat me down again at the dining table. Same setup, same calm voice, same pen placed like an altar offering. "I've been reflecting," she said. That sentence used to mean something normal. Now it meant I wrote more restrictions. She opened a fresh document. The title was the same, Relationship Agreement. But underneath it was a new section in bold, Additional Boundaries, for emotional safety. And there it was. Not 5 rules, not 10, 20. I stared at the list like it was a menu, and everything on it was no. I flipped through. First few were still dressed up as healthy. No accusations, no interrogations, no phone checking or questioning digital privacy, no tracking behavior, asking where, when, with whom. I stopped and looked up. "So, I can't ask where you've been?" She didn't even flinch. "You can ask," she said. I nodded. "Okay, but not in a way that implies suspicion," she added. I blinked. "How do you ask where your wife has been without implying suspicion?" She gave me the calmest smile on earth. "With trust." Right, trust. The magical word that means stop noticing patterns. I kept reading. Jealousy is insecurity. Do not project insecurity. Do not attempt to control outcomes through emotional pressure. I snorted. That one was my favorite because it was so vague it could cover literally anything. If I said, "I miss you," that could be emotional pressure. If I said, "I'm worried," that could be controlling outcomes. It was like she'd written herself a legal permission slip to ignore any uncomfortable conversation. Then I got to one that made my jaw tighten. No physical pressure. Unwanted touch, forced affection, coercive closeness. I read it twice. Then I looked at her. "Coercive closeness?" I repeated. "What am I, a python?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "See? Sarcasm," she said. I exhaled through my nose. I wasn't even mad yet. I was fascinated. Because here's the thing. My wife wasn't acting unhinged. She was acting professional, like she'd trained for this. And the more I read, the more I realized what this actually was. A script. A trap that makes the other person wrong no matter what they do. Then came the next batch. If you need to discuss something serious, ask permission first. No ambush conversations. No talking about the relationship after 9 p.m. No speaking during my decompression time. Decompression time was a new concept. Apparently it begins whenever I walk into a room. I pointed at the paper. "Wait, permission?" I asked. She nodded. "It's a boundary." "No," I said. "It's an appointment system." She stayed calm. Healthy partners don't demand access to someone's emotional space. There it was again. Healthy. The word she used like a hammer. If I question it, I'm unhealthy. If I disagree, I'm insecure. If I push back, I'm toxic. She kept going. "Do not ask about my phone. Do not comment on my friendships. Do not express discomfort with my personal choices. Do not require reassurance. Self-soothe." I stared at Rule 20. "Do not require reassurance?" She tilted her head. "Yes." "So, I'm not allowed to ask my wife for reassurance?" "You can," she said, "but you need to regulate first and understand where that need is coming from." I laughed once, a single sound, Not even a big laugh. Just a small, involuntary, "Are you serious?" noise. And she pointed at the paper. Rule 3. No sarcasm. I looked at her. She looked back at me. Completely calm. Completely sure of herself. That's when I realized something important. She wasn't negotiating. She was installing software. And she wanted me to click, "I agree." I leaned back. "Why are we doing this?" I asked. Her voice softened like she was explaining something to a child. "Because I need peace," she said. "And because this dynamic has been unhealthy." "What dynamic?" I asked. "We argue like any couple." She shook her head slowly. "You get intense. You push. You want answers. You make me feel cornered." I paused. I wanted to say, if you feel cornered by a question, maybe the problem isn't the question. But I couldn't, because the document was designed to punish that exact thought. I looked down at the new signature line, a new date line. It was like renewing a subscription. Except the subscription was my mouth staying shut. And here's the part people won't understand until they've lived it. I didn't sign because I'm weak. I signed because I could see the alternative. The alternative was weeks of, "You're not respecting my boundaries." The alternative was her crying to friends, telling them I'm emotionally unsafe. The alternative was sleeping on the couch while she sent me articles about insecure men who need control. And yes, there was also the word that hangs over every marriage like a guillotine: divorce. So I signed, not because I believed it was healthy, because I believed it was temporary. I believed like an idiot that once she felt safe, she'd relax. That's the lie you tell yourself. Just get through this stage. I slid the paper back. She watched my signature like she was watching a door lock click. Then she exhaled, almost relieved. "Thank you," she said. "This means you're committed." I gave her a small smile. "Sure," I said. "Committed." She reached across the table, and for a second her hand touched mine. Soft, calm, sweet. And then she added casually, "Healthy men don't need control. Only insecure ones do." She said it like a quote, like she'd memorized it. And that line did something in my head, because it wasn't just a rule, it was a label, a branding iron. If I ever questioned her behavior, I'd be insecure. If I ever asked for clarity, I'd be controlling. If I ever asked about her phone, I'd be toxic. She had built herself a world where she could do anything, and the moment I reacted, I became the problem. For about 2 weeks, she was calm. She stopped arguing, stopped reacting, stopped explaining herself. She floated through the house with this peaceful expression, like she'd finally tamed the wild animal. Me. Then came the moment that made my stomach tighten. We were out one afternoon, and her phone lit up. She turned it slightly away, not dramatically, just instinctively. I didn't even ask. I didn't say a word. But she saw my eyes flick for half a second, and she smiled. Not a warm smile. A small, satisfied one. Like she'd been waiting for that. And she said softly, right there in public, like she was reminding me of a leash. Rule 8. No questions about digital privacy. I stared at her. She sipped her drink like she'd done nothing. And in that moment, I realized these weren't rules for us. They were rules for me. And the scariest part wasn't the list. It was how comfortable she was holding it. After the second signing, the house got quieter. Not peaceful quiet. More like the quiet you get when everyone's pretending the fire alarm isn't going off. She moved through our days with this calm, controlled tone, like she'd finally regulated the marriage by turning me into a liability management project. And me? I became a guy who thought about wording the way normal people think about driving on ice. Every sentence needed traction. Every question needed a disclaimer. Because the rules stopped being guidelines. They became a trapdoor under every conversation. The first time it hit me, I asked something normal, boring, married people normal. "Hey, what time are you coming back tonight?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "Rule 7, she said. I blinked. What? No interrogations, she replied in that smooth voice. It creates an unsafe dynamic. I stared at her. That's not an interrogation, I said. That's scheduling, like adults. She finally looked up, calm as a yoga instructor watching someone eat gluten. You're framing it like you're entitled to my time. Because I'm your husband. She tilted her head. Slow. Cold. See? That's control. And just like that, my calendar became coercion. Then came the affection problem. One evening she walked past me in the hallway. I went to wrap an arm around her. Nothing aggressive, nothing weird. Just my wife passed by, so I touched my wife. She stepped away like I'd reached for her wallet. Rule 12. I froze. Are you serious? Physical pressure is manipulation, she said calmly. An arm around you is manipulation? It can be, she answered. I stood there with my hand half raised, feeling like a criminal who forgot to read the sign in a museum. Do not touch the exhibits. And she walked away like nothing happened. That's when I started noticing the pattern. She wasn't upset. She wasn't hurt. She was pleased, not openly, not cartoon villain pleased, but there was a little glow in her eyes when she caught me breaking something, like she'd built a system designed to produce wins. I tried adapting. I genuinely tried. I started speaking like a customer service representative. Hey, when you have a moment, would you be open to discussing? She'd cut me off immediately. Rule 13, she said. Ask permission for serious talks. That's literally what I'm doing. You're pressuring me, she replied. I didn't consent to a heavy topic. So I'd back off. Then later she'd say, you never communicate. It was beautiful. Psychologically. A perfect circle where I always end up wrong. Eventually, I stopped talking much at all. Because silence was the only move that didn't trigger a rule. And once silence becomes your safest option, you're not in a marriage anymore. I'd sit on the couch and she'd scroll her phone, calm, humming like she'd solved something. If I sighed, regulate. If I frowned, your energy is intense. If I asked to follow up, Rule 6, no accusations. I started hearing the rules in my head even when she wasn't around, like a second brain installed to keep me compliant. And the worst part? I started second-guessing myself. Not like, maybe I'm wrong. More like, maybe the way I'm thinking is wrong. That's how it works. Normal questions become interrogations. Normal discomfort becomes insecurity. Normal boundaries become control. And suddenly, you're the guy in the story who needs to work on himself. Which leads to the next phase, public PR. She started telling people, not big dramatic complaints, little polished statements. At a dinner with friends, someone asked how married life was. She smiled softly and touched my arm like we were in a commercial. We've been doing a lot of work, she said. I forced a smile. Yeah, she nodded. He's working on himself. It's been hard, but I'm proud of the progress. I almost laughed. Because if this was progress, then prison is personal growth. One of her friends gave me that sympathetic look. The one you give a man who used to be emotionally unsafe. I realized in real time that she was writing a narrative around me, and I was sitting there like a prop. That night when we got home, I finally said something sharper than my customer service voice. You're telling people I'm... What? A project? She looked genuinely surprised that I'd noticed. I'm not saying that, she replied. You just said I'm working on myself like I'm in rehab. She stayed calm. If you're defensive, she said, that means it's hitting a truth. I stared at her. There it was again. Any disagreement became evidence. I felt something shift in me. Not anger, clarity. Because this wasn't about peace, this was about power. Then came the sentence that changed the temperature in the room. One night, after I'd been extra careful all week, extra calm, extra quiet, she poured herself tea and said casually, I'm documenting everything. I didn't react at first. I thought she meant journaling, gratitude, self-reflection, whatever. Then she added lightly, "Just in case." I turned to her. "In case of what?" She looked at me like I was being dramatic. "In case you ever try to rewrite reality," she said. "In case I need to protect myself." I felt my jaw tighten. "You're keeping records?" I asked. She shrugged. "It's healthy," she said. "Accountability is safety." I stared at her, and I finally understood what the rules really were. They weren't boundaries. They were a weapon system, a set of preloaded charges placed under my feet. All she had to do was wait for me to step wrong, and I could feel it. She wanted that moment, because the moment I slipped, she'd have proof, and she'd have a story, and I'd be the unstable husband who couldn't respect boundaries. I didn't say anything else, because in my head, one thought repeated, clear as a warning siren, if she's documenting, I should be too. After she said, "I'm documenting everything, just in case," I stopped treating the rules like a weird phase. I started treating them like a setup, because nobody documents their spouse unless they're building a case. And once that idea lands in your head, everything you ignored suddenly turns into pattern recognition. Her calm wasn't calm. It was preparation. Her boundaries weren't healing. They were insulation. She was sealing herself off from any accountability while making sure I looked like the unstable one. So I did what I always do when something smells off. I got quiet and started watching. The first crack happened on a random evening when she left her laptop open on the kitchen table. That almost never happened. Her devices were usually treated like sacred artifacts. But that night she went to shower. Her screen was still lit, and I saw an email preview, just the first line. Something about next steps. From an address that didn't look like a coworker or a friend. It looked like a professional. My stomach did that slow drop. So I clicked. And there it was. An email thread with an attorney. I scanned fast, heart steady, brain sharp. And one line hit me like a punch. Once he signs, it's perfect. He can't deny anything. I read it again, then again, because my brain wanted to reject it, like a bad subtitle. But it was real. I scrolled up. There were references to our agreement, references to documenting his behavior, references to establishing patterns. I could practically see the strategy laid out like a blueprint. Get him to sign communication standards. Provoke. Label those reactions as unsafe. Record and document. Walk into court as the calm victim. My wife wasn't trying to save our marriage. She was rehearsing my character assassination. When she came back into the kitchen, towel on her hair, she saw my face. "What?" she asked, instantly cautious. I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. I smiled, small and controlled. "Nothing," I said. She stared at me for a second like she didn't like that I wasn't panicking. Then she walked away. And in my head I thought, okay. So that's the game. That night I didn't sleep much. Not because I was devastated, because I was mentally rearranging the room. I replayed months of conversations, and suddenly the rules made perfect sense. Why I couldn't ask where she'd been, why I couldn't ask about her phone, why serious talks required permission, why affection could be physical pressure. It wasn't about safety. It was about building a narrative where she's always calm and I'm always intense. And the most disgusting part? It was working. Friends already looked at me differently. Even I had started talking like I was on probation. So I did the opposite of what she expected. I started collecting, not like a paranoid idiot with conspiracy boards, like a man preparing to survive a legal ambush. First thing, I found the original agreement, the first version. She kept everything neat so it wasn't hard. I scanned it, took clear photos, saved copies. Then I found the updated version, the more aligned one. Same thing. I started screenshotting messages when she dropped those therapy quotes that basically admitted intent. Then I started recording certain conversations, only when she escalated into those scripted accusations. A few days later, she tested the system again. She came home late. No text. No warning. Old me would have asked, "Where were you?" Knew me knew the trap. So I said, casually, "Everything okay?" She smiled like she'd been waiting. "Rule 7, she said softly. "No interrogations." I nodded. "Right." She paused, irritated for half a second, because she wanted the fight and I didn't give it to her. Then she walked past me, and I caught a whiff of perfume that wasn't hers. My brain clicked. I didn't confront her. I just filed it away. Then came the confirmation. I saw a message pop up on her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. A name I didn't recognize. A short line. "Same plan. Miss you." She flipped her phone down instantly. And then, like muscle memory, she looked at me and said, "Don't." I smiled. "Wouldn't dream of it," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "That sarcasm is, I'll regulate," I cut in. She didn't like that either. Because the truth was, I had stopped being manageable. That night, alone in the bathroom, I looked at myself in the mirror and had the simplest thought. She's planning to leave, and she wants to leave clean. She wanted to walk away with the story, the sympathy, the assets, the advantage. And she wanted me to be the unstable villain who couldn't respect her boundaries. So I made my decision. I would keep playing calm, keep playing regulated, let her think the script was working. But behind the scenes, I would build my own file. She didn't drag it out much longer. Once she felt ready, she went straight to the cleanest move possible. One Friday morning, she sat me down like it was another structured conversation. "I've made a decision," she said. I nodded slowly. "About what?" "Our marriage," she replied, like she was announcing a weather update. "I'm choosing myself." That phrase should come with a warning label. I kept my face neutral. "Okay." She blinked like she expected tears, rage, begging. Instead, she got me regulated. "I've filed," she added. She slid an envelope toward me. Divorce petition, legal language, her name, my name, dates, and the subtle sweetness on top. "I really tried," she said, "but I can't live in an unsafe dynamic." I almost laughed. I didn't, because now I understood the script. In the weeks before court, she performed. Not at home, she barely talked to me at home. But outside, she was a masterpiece. She told friends quietly, "I'm not trying to ruin him, I just need peace." And people did what people always do. They filled in the blanks. They didn't ask what happened, they just assumed. Court day came fast. She walked in with her attorney like she was arriving at a brunch reservation. Light makeup, soft outfit, hair perfect. Not flashy, not messy. Designed to say, "I'm gentle, I'm reasonable, I'm safe." I walked in calm too, but calm doesn't look the same on a man. On a woman, calm is composed. On a man, calm is cold. We took our seats. The judge looked down at the file, then at us. Her lawyer started smoothly. "Your Honor," he said, "my client made every effort to create a healthy environment." Then he held up our agreement. "Here," he continued, "is a signed relationship agreement demonstrating the lengths she went to ensure safety and reduce conflict." The judge's eyes flicked to me, and I could see it, the first shift. That silent human thought, why would a wife need this unless he's difficult? Her attorney kept going. He read selective parts out loud, slowly, like scripture. No raised voices, no interrogations, no physical pressure, regulated tone, permission for serious talks. Then he turned slightly, like he was presenting evidence in a crime documentary. And despite these reasonable boundaries, he said, he repeatedly violated them. Her attorney just needed to paint me as intense, unsafe, controlling, emotionally unstable. And the agreement did it for him. Because I signed it. That was the genius. A signature looks like consent. A signature looks like guilt. Then my wife spoke. Her voice was soft, controlled, practiced. "I only wanted peace," she said, eyes shiny but not messy. "I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to feel safe in my own home." Then she added the line that was meant to finish me. "I started documenting. Because I was scared. The judge's face tightened, and for the first time I could feel the floor tilt under me. Your Honor, I said, that agreement wasn't created to save a marriage. Her attorney smirked slightly, like sure it wasn't. I continued. It was created to build a case. The judge raised a brow. My wife stayed perfectly calm, but her fingers tightened around her tissue, just a little. I reached into my folder, and that's when the balance shifted. Because I didn't bring feelings to court. I brought receipts. Before we proceed, I said, I'd like to submit a second copy of the agreement. Her attorney blinked. Second copy? Yes, I said. The earlier version, with edits and context. I placed it down. Then I added, and I have messages where she explains why she wanted me to sign it. That was the first time my wife's calm face cracked. Just for half a second. But I saw it. The judge looked at the document again, slower this time. Her attorney's confidence dipped, just slightly, and my wife's eyes narrowed. She didn't expect me to show up with an organized file, and she definitely didn't expect me to show up with the one thing that can kill a narrative in court: proof of intent. The judge wasn't looking at me the same way anymore. Now he was looking at her. Her attorney tried to recover. Your Honor, this is just an attempt to... I lifted one hand politely. I'm not here to accuse, I said. I'm here to clarify intent. Then I submitted the real evidence. First, messages to her friend. Once he signs this, I can destroy him. He can't deny anything. The judge's face hardened. My wife's jaw tightened. Next, the texts with the other man. After contract, I'm finally free. So the rules weren't about emotional safety, they were about an exit plan. Silence filled the room. The kind of silence where truth doesn't need explanation. Her lawyer stopped flipping papers. My wife stared straight ahead, but her eyes weren't calm anymore. They were calculating, cornered. The judge leaned back slowly. So, he said carefully, this agreement was not mutual boundaries. It was a strategy, I answered. Her attorney tried one last weak defense. She was protecting herself. The judge cut him off. No, he said firmly. She was constructing a narrative. The outcome wasn't some movie explosion. No handcuffs, no shouting, just consequences. Her credibility collapsed. The court saw the manipulation. The victim mask didn't fit anymore. Her lawyer looked like he regretted waking up that morning. And my wife, the woman who thought she could write rules for my behavior, sat there realizing she'd written a confession in legal font. When it ended, I walked out calmly. Not triumphant, not broken, just free. Outside the courthouse, cold air hit my face, and for the first time in months, there were no rules in my head, no regulated tone. I looked back once, not at her, at the building, and I thought, she believed she was writing instructions for me. Turns out, she was writing evidence against herself. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.